For years, BreweryDB has been the industry's only professionally curated source of brewery knowledge and responsible for mapping millions of visits to breweries all across the United States. In early 2021, BreweryDB revealed a whole new platform with all new features for craft lovers to plan their unique brewery experience. Find, filter, search, and route your way to breweries worldwide and in your own neighborhood. To take full advantage of the optimized power of BreweryDB and to increase your brew knowledge, visit brewerydb.com, your digital destination for brewery experiences. Good Beer Matters shares the stories of craft and culture found in every glass, and I'm excited to announce that the Good Beer Matters podcast and BreweryDB are collaborating this year to help you get to the bottom of it. Visit us at brewerydb.com and goodbeermatters.net to finally have the experience you've been missing. My name is Jeremy, and this is Good Beer Matters.
I think it is absolutely one of the best ways that you can build brand awareness. You've got to learn how to court your customers through your marketing efforts. It really is all about the experience. What do you want the consumer to walk away with?
In the old days of marketing, luck was a significant aspect of a successful campaign filled with jingles and interruptions. Now we've learned to add value in the form of branded content that works better for your beer business. My next guest is a coach and a guide who navigates us through the world of content marketing. I've studied, traveled, and tasted my way through some of the best beer the world has to offer. Over the past few years, I've also spoken to beer industry leaders from around the globe, and one thing is certain: the art, the science, and the culture of beer has more of a profound effect on us than we realize. There's a story of craft and culture found in every glass, and I intend to get to the bottom of it. These are the stories of us, of great food and the beer that brings it all together. I hope you enjoy episode 75 of Good Beer Matters with my good friend, once again, Julie Rhodes. Well, welcome back to the Good Beer Matters podcast. There's a little bit of a trend going on here. I'm bringing guests on for a third time to kind of form an exclusive club. Not because we can talk so easily about beer and other things about beer, which we can, and not because they've paid me, which they haven't, but because they have so much knowledge, so much information to share, and they're entertaining, that they've become my go-to resource for subjects like this. And so you got a taste from the last episode. This episode, I'm bringing back my good friend Julie Rhodes from Not Your Hobby Marketing to talk about a very specific type of marketing and what we can do with it. Julie, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Oh, Jeremy, thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I consider myself privileged to be in the three-peat club on the podcast. And I can't wait to talk about marketing with you.
Well, and I spoke with Chris, our mutual friend. Actually, you connected me with Chris to get him on the podcast in the beginning. But I told him, kind of like in Saturday Night Live, if you host for 5 times, you get a jacket. So 2 more times, I got to come up with a special thing for you guys. But either way, thank you for coming back yet again. But if this is the very first podcast that someone is listening and being introduced to you and your work, will you give us a quick rundown of your background just to kind of make sure everyone's up to speed?
Yeah, sure. Of course. And I guess it's kind of hard to put myself and my business into a nutshell, but I do probably some pretty specific things. If you want to give me a big giant umbrella, I am a beverage alcohol business consultant. That's the best way to put it, because I work with breweries, I work with cideries, meaderies, seltzer folks, CBD people, pretty much across the board on beverage alcohol. And even though I hate the term consultant, that's pretty much what I am. I like to use the term coach a little bit more.
I was going to say a guide. Yeah. I would have said a guide.
Yeah, like a guide. Yeah. Because a lot of what I do is 50% education. So I do a lot of teaching, and 50% sort of, just workshopping with people, like in real time, just tackling, what do you have going on with your business? What's going on in your market? What's going on with your brand? And let's figure out how to grow your business, and grow your brand and make it better and work a little smarter and not harder.
Wait. Say those words again. Work smarter, not harder. That sounds
smarter,
crazy.
Not harder. Yes,
that's crazy.
I know. I come from the same cloth as Chris, in that we're both big fans of, like the E-Myth and traction and, structures like that where, you can work in the business, but the business shouldn't be working you, Mm-hmm. So I do that I kind of stay in 3 lanes, very specific lanes. And that is dealing with outside sales. So beverage sales in the wholesale channel, dealing with digital marketing optimization. So helping you kind of improve your social media, email, website, all that good stuff. Anything in a digital channel of marketing. I don't do, like tap handles or merch or any of that stuff. And then my big wheelhouse is distribution management. So I work with beverage alcohol producers to improve their relationships with their distributors and wholesalers, because who doesn't want to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a big mystery for most people. There's no guidebook, that you can buy on this. So we talk about how to work better with their distributors and create a more profitable relationship, pretty much.
Yeah, because people who work at distributors are wonderful people, and they're very like-minded, but the distribution is a completely different animal, and it takes some understanding and finesse to work with that animal, right?
Yes, very much so. And to be honest with you, I found that people that find success with wholesale are very secretive about it, because they don't want to share, their little points of success with people. So, after spending well over a decade on supplier side sales and working with a multitude of distributors across the U.S., it just became one of those weird little talents that I picked up along the way. And I thought, I really do want to share this with people, because I don't, the more question marks that I can eliminate out there in our market, in the beverage alcohol market, the better. And so, that's kind of my take on everything. I teach digital courses. I have a group coaching program, like a mastermind program that I do. And I work with companies one-on-one as well.
Yeah,
that's me.
And I've been fortunate to talk with you one-on-one. I've been fortunate to be a part of that mastermind group and listen to the contributions not only from you, but some of the contributions from other people and part of it, in part of that group. And I did admit to you, because of being so busy lately, I'm a little bit behind, but I will catch up. But so that's what you've been up to lately. But so the very first episode you and I talked, we talked all about sales. And that is, to this day, at least last time I checked, the #1 downloaded episode that I have.
Yay!
And I've talked to master cicerones. I've talked to industry leaders in the craft beer world. But your episode is #1 still. So and I say that to not only stroke your ego, but also anyone listening, make sure you go back and listen to Julie's episode. I'll put it in the show notes where she talks about sales. But today I wanted to talk about marketing specifically. But selfishly, I want to dive into to define and explore exactly what content marketing is, and I see a lot of industries use this. I see there's a lot of movies that use this in really wonderful, subtle ways, but I don't see enough of this in the beer world. And I if I had hair, I'd pull it out, because I don't understand why. We are an industry built on passion and stories and flavor and experiences, but there's not enough stories out there. But so now I'm going to put this on you. Will you please explain what exactly content marketing is, and can you give us different examples?
Sure. This is a huge marketing topic to tackle, by the way. So I will try my hardest to kind of narrow it down and kind of do it from the beginning so people can understand sort of the building blocks of it. First of all, I adore content marketing. I think it is absolutely one of the best ways that you can build brand awareness as a growing craft beverage company or brewery, right? And I think the best way to describe it is deliverable value. That's probably the simplest way. So when people, humans in general make purchase decisions, right? It's because we're usually triggered by some kind of emotion, but we follow up that decision with logic, right? And so when we're looking to kind of reassure our human brains that, yeah, it does make sense for me to buy this beer, right? You're looking for logical pieces of information or value that have been delivered to you in some way, shape, or form by a brand that sort of reinforces your buying decision. Does that make sense? Hopefully, I hate to be too out there with it.
Absolutely, but just to help get our feet on the ground, can you give us examples of this?
Yes, of course. So the simplest example would be off the top of my head. Let's say you're a brewery. You want to highlight one of your specific beers. Say you send an email out to your followers that are on your email list, like they've subscribed to an email list somewhere, either on your social media channels or on your website. And they're expecting to get some kind of information from you, right? And you shoot off an email that says, hey, look at this beer. We just made it. Here's some, features about it, like ABV and flavor profiles and things like that. But guess why you should also pick this up? Here is a recipe for, beer bread that is using our new beer. So it's kind of a way that you can deliver additional content to your fans in a way that enhances their product experience. So it could be something as small as a Facebook post, that tells a story. It could be an Instagram post that educates your consumers about, a beer that you have, or how to taste the beer, or different beer styles, something educational, right? It could be in the form of inspiration. It could be sending an email out about the origin story of your brewery, that gets people inspired and gets them, more involved with your brand. It could be a video on your YouTube channel. It's some, form of media that is adding value to your brand because it piques the interest of your target audience.
And, for me, I think there's that whole aspect of people will buy products, services, or information from you if they know, like, and trust you. That's kind of like a basic adage of business. They know, like, and trust you. So the question is, how do we get people to know, like, and trust us so they will give us their money? By providing value, by letting them get to know you, and so you can do that through story, through education, and one of my favorite examples that was just absolutely genius, and no matter how you look at it, is the toy brand Lego. I mean, the story I heard is that their sales were kind of waning. I mean, you had all these high tech things, and kids were looking at video games and iPads and everything, and they're like, God, how do we sell more bricks? Well, you create a movie. They put out a Lego movie that people paid for, and they love the Legos, and so now all of their Lego sales are just doing much better because they've created a culture around it. And in the beer world, one of my particular favorites, the Spanish beer brand Estrella Damm, they put out some short videos with well-known actors like Jean Reno and and Dakota Johnson, just to kind of tell stories and just kind of casually work the brand in there and help people think, oh, that was a fun story. That was I want to be part of that brand. I think those are the most classic examples that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are incredible examples. And, it's not that difficult to do. You know what I mean? I think that's, I talk about content market. You can tell that my brain is like, my gears are turning on where to start.
Yes.
For this, because it's a lot. And I get really excited about talking about this because, this is exactly the kind of stuff that I like mentioning to people when I say work smarter and not harder. Because breweries are one of the most fascinating businesses to work with as far as how much content you actually have. There's so many facets of a brewery, right? Like you probably have an origin story, how the owners got together or how you got started. Maybe you came from the home brewing world. If you're a production brewery, like how did you get the location? Like, does your building have a history? All these different things, right? Like, how did you decide on your recipes? How did you come up with the recipes? How did you scale up your recipes? How do you pick your ingredients? Like all these different things, right, can be sources for content marketing. And I love it when I can convey to breweries, like, look, let's not reinvent the wheel, right? When it comes to your marketing, let's look inward, right? Let's look at what you have already, because you've got a ton of assets to work with. You just have to know how to pick them out and dissect them and mold them into a form that is appealing for your target customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And like if Luke Skywalker opened up a brewery instead of blowing up the Death Star, it still would have been a good story.
Yes, exactly.
But it's just telling that story.
I love a good Star Wars reference too. You know me. Like I could talk all day about that.
Oh, I'm sure we can come up with more. But at least for me, you're kind of solving a couple different problems. You're helping people get to know you, like you, and trust you. In the case of what you mentioned earlier, by sharing free content. Even that was the essence of Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Jab, 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 Punch, is like give, ask. It's like, I want to share something with you that might entertain you, might educate you, might edutain you, or it might just help you level up your game somehow. And don't forget me when you have a need for X, Y, or Z. And I don't see enough people doing this. Every once in a while, you'll go on to social media and you'll see a brewery put out a video about how the brewer brewed this beer. Great. That's fantastic. We need more of that.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you brought up Gary Vee's book. That's one of my favorite marketing books, by the way. I recommend that to everybody. If you haven't read Jab, 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 Right Hook, it's amazing. So what I like to kind of preface content marketing with is giving people the analogy of like trying to cross a river. Like if you're basically trying to get your consumer from point A to point B, right? Think about it that way. Like they're going from, I have no idea what your brewery is, right, to actually purchasing something. That's kind of the general, like, would you say that's like the general gist of what people, but I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do with marketing, right?
You're trying to get people to take an action that hopefully will improve their lives, right? I mean, if you're benevolent.
Yeah, because exactly. So we're not marketing just for fun or because we like stressing ourselves out with trying to come up with a lot of content, right? Like it's just not, it's not anybody's hobby. Like you're trying to utilize marketing to facilitate sales. So how can we do that, right? Like let's reverse engineer this. If we're looking at getting somebody across like a river or a stream, they're probably going to need like stepping stones, right? Like how do we get them from point A to point B? Mm-hmm. So you can utilize content marketing to help you do that. right? And each of those stones, think about that as what people refer to as like a conversion, right? Like it's a marketing conversion and not a sales conversion.
Sure.
So you're dropping kind of a pathway for that person to get to a purchase decision by giving them pieces of value, like a rock big enough to step on, right? To like make it to the next phase. And that's building brand awareness. Like when people say, oh, I need to build brand awareness, I need to increase brand awareness. This is what that actually means, right? Yes. This is like, you are familiarizing that person with your brand in a way so that they feel comfortable on the other side of things, of actually buying your product in a store or going to your tap room or, purchasing something online now that we have e-commerce in the mix even more than we used to, right? So that's what you're trying to do. And, it's very hard to define, identify and define marketing conversions if you're not using content marketing, because content marketing is so specific, right? Like you're involving your customer in the brand, you're getting them absorbed into a story, like you said, a movie, some kind of experience that will build that branded relationship with that person so that they're that much closer to buying something from you. So the more that you can do that with things like, educational emails or informative social media posts, or even like what we're doing, like a podcast, like a podcast.
Like episode. A podcast. If anyone wants to grow their brand with a podcast, I know a guy.
Exactly. And that's part of it.
I'll Venmo you later, Julie. Thanks.
Yes, sure. No problem. But just things like, a press release, right? Like an informative press release. What do you have going on right now? Can you tell me more about a product? I actually, one of my favorite content marketing breweries is Jester King out of Austin. Well, I say Austin. It's right outside of Austin, Texas. Yeah. But I went to school down there, so they've been on my radar for a really long time. And I can get their beers here, finally, in Colorado, which is great. But I stay on top of their social media and their email. I love getting their emails just because they're so rich with value about that brand, because I am a target customer for them, right?
Yeah.
So the key with content marketing is giving me something of value that I'm going to appreciate so that I get more involved with your brand. So what is Jester King giving me as their target consumer? They are giving me gorgeous photographs of like their compound that they have down there with like the goats and the, the barns and all that.
That's their marketing ploy, is just videos of those cute little dancing or jumping goats.
It's so wonderful, right?
Done.
And then on top of that, they are giving me beautiful media, whether it's a video or a photograph or whatever, with their newest beer releases, and it has ingredients with it, right?
Yeah.
So I know what to expect. I have, I can figure out like what that beer is about without even reading the label, right? Because you've given me a frame of reference. They also send out recipes, which I think is super fun, that involve some of their beers. So, like I love to cook. I love to drink beer. I cook with my kids. We make beer bread. We've made beer cinnamon rolls. We've done all kinds of stuff. And then they're also giving me like vacation options, like ideas for getaways to go visit the brewery. They talk about events. They talk about merchandise. It's like they are speaking directly to me. And that's kind of what you're shooting for,
Perfect.
Really. Yeah. Like just speaking directly to the right person for your brand and your brewery and your products, and then delivering them pieces of content that suck them in and bring them into your universe and make them want to run out their back door to go pick up your products sooner rather than later.
Well, and I think you used this analogy last time, but it's like going up to someone at a bar and saying, hey, you want to get married? And they'll say, they'll throw their drink in your face and they say no. Well, that's a horrible way of going about sales. Instead, you might try, meeting someone through a mutual friend, aka referrals, or you might go up and say, hey, can I buy you a drink? Add value for a little bit of time, or say, I noticed you were struggling with something. Can I assist you in some way? Can I help? I'm quite good at, the Rubik's Cube or something like that. Just kind of start nice and easy. And then that first drink becomes a date, and that date becomes a weekend getaway, and weekend getaway becomes an engagement. And next thing you know, hey, everyone's happy.
Exactly.
It's kind of like going through that process little by little, but it may be painstaking, but that's the way it works.
I've got a question for you. How are you engaging with your customers? Are you adding value or just vying for attention? If you have a business, then you are an authority and should be regarded as a partner in everyone's mutual success. But getting that message across in the first place, that's the trick. At Mountain Sea Media, I use education and storytelling to keep your brand on top of mind. So if you're done with ineffective marketing and want to create more impact, I want Mountain Sea Media to be your resource for high-value branded content. Contact me at jeremy@mountainseamedia.com to explore the possibilities. After all, it's your story. I'll help you tell it.
Yeah, you've got to date your customers.
Yeah, exactly.
not that I'm encouraging bad behavior.
Let's see. That's gonna be an opening quote. I'm gonna pull that out.
I know. You've got to learn how to court your customers through your marketing efforts. And one of the best ways that you can do that is with content marketing. So I guess you could think of content marketing as like chivalry, like a really nice way to, show that you care.
Yeah.
To your customers is saying like, I'm going to give you this not because you didn't ask me for it, but I care enough about your patronage that I'm going to tell you things about our brand, and I'm going to give you ways that you can interact with us and get involved with the brewery
totally.
In different ways, shapes, and forms so that we do have a relationship. And oh, by the way, I'm also going to keep it spicy because I'm going to try different stuff, throughout the length of our relationship, just to keep you around so you don't get bored, you don't go off with another brand. That sounds terrible, but that's the best way I can put it. I mean,
but you know what? I love that. I should have. Yeah. Well, this can also be a great podcast for marketing and marriage counseling. So we'll double duty. But using that same analogy is great, and it drove me crazy. A guest we spoke with earlier this year. We talked all about marketing, and we talked about how back in the days, with the Mad Men days in the 50s and 60s, it was all about interruption and keep up the Joneses and don't you want to be just like everyone else, and that doesn't work anymore. And this whole content marketing even goes into, I was just reading something where it goes into products that are just pure commodities, and there's no way you can establish a relationship or a personal culture around something like laundry detergent. But the way that you tell that story can make you feel like you're part of a bigger legacy and be a part of, it's just how you tell that story and how this product helps that story move you along in a way that's mutually beneficial. That's the stuff that, as a writer and a content creator, I find that stuff interesting. How can I tell a story that doesn't hoodwink people, but how can I tell a story to help them understand that a relationship with this company, this entity, whatever that is mutually beneficial and it's going to be great. Everyone's going to be happy if we can just combine our forces together. And And that's really the promise of a beer and a good food pairing as well. It's like, we want to get paid. We want the servers to get great tips, and we want the customers to say, hell yeah, that was amazing. I'm coming back next Wednesday. That's the goal of all this stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm so glad that you mentioned beer and food pairing, and I can't believe that that didn't strike me before in my examples. But yes. And to be honest with you, it really is all about the end result, right? The experience. Like what do you want the consumer to walk away with, right? Like, the example that I like to use actually is like Stone Brewing, right? Regardless of how you feel about Stone and, everything. They are very, very good at marketing overall, and their content marketing supports all of this 100%. They're very clear about the result of engaging with Stone is that you're like the beer rebel, right? Like you're that was their original message, and they got it out so long ago, and they have stuck with it so.
All right. Well, that just cut out.
Oh no, I lost you.
Well, we'll just resume. You were on a roll. So
okay. No, I'll just keep going if you're still recording.
Yeah, I'm still recording. I'll just edit this stuff out. No big deal.
Okay, sounds good.
But will you kind of go back a little bit, and then I'll just edit this in?
Sure. Yeah. So, Stone has a very distinct perspective, right? Like they are not for your typical like macro, what they would call yellow fizzy beer drinker, right?
Okay.
And if you think about that, it's an end result, right? Like they aren't talking about their individual beers. They're talking about what you're getting when you are involved with Stone as a brand, as in like, I buy Stone beer, right? That's kind of like an identity, that I have. What does that say about me? Okay, well, that says like, I'm bucking the system. I don't accept macro. You know what I mean? Like I want something different. It's also like aggressive. They've got the gargoyle. They've got all that, right? Like it's aggressive hopping.
Yeah. Arrogant bastard. Are you worthy? As opposed to
exactly.
Stone's American Strong Ale. Would you like some?
Yes, exactly. It's not polite. We'll put it that way. Like it's, and everything that they do has that feeling to it. So if you're on their email list, the emails that you get from them have that consistent branding message, right? And the things that they're giving you of branded value, like, oh, you can buy this merchandise. Oh, we're going to, here's a new video from Greg Cook. And like, you don't get like a nice, polite message from him. You get like him in flip-flops with a scraggly beard and, probably expletives and stuff like that. Right. But it all like follows the same pattern, right? Like it's consistent branding, and the way that they add value to that is through different channels, like their social media, their website, YouTube channel, email list, merchandise, all that kind of stuff. And if you think about it all in the big picture, what that basically does is warm up the audience. Like, these are the expectations, and we're just going to continue giving you this value that is consistent with our branding all the time. And that's how they create like this loyal army of Stone fans. Hopefully that makes sense.
No,
I know
that's perfect.
That was a lot of pieces.
No, that's perfect though. It's basically saying this is who we are and what we stand for, and this is where we're going. Who wants to go along for the ride? And that is kind of next level stuff too, where you're identifying this is who we are. We're not a brewery for everybody. We're a brewery for this person. And there's a lot of breweries out there like, oh, we cater to everybody. So then why would you be brand loyal? I mean, if you're basically the beer version of hotel art. If you're trying to make everyone, unoffended or uninterested or uninspired, because you want to make it, happy and peaceful, as one example. I'm kind of going off on a riff, but to kind of identify your 1,000 true fans, to kind of pull that quote from the internet. You're kind of defining your tribe, and with the tribe, right, you kind of get a little bit more buy-in. You get a little bit more know, like, and trust value, and you get a little bit more. Oh God, I just lost the word. But where people are going to stay with your brand, they're not going to be.
Yes.
They're not going to just be so promiscuous with different beers.
Right, and I know that I want to really tie this back in to specifically content, because I really want people to understand, when you say content, it could be anything from as small as a branded Facebook post with a really great caption, right? That you're just like giving people information. It could be the media that you're giving them, like making sure that you're giving them sales focused media that is on brand and makes sense with your brewery or your brand. It could be an email with additional things for them to do, which is a whole nother subject, by the way, is that, if you want to continue to involve people with your brand, you have to tell them what to do with your content. Otherwise, they're not going to do anything with it. So a big part of content marketing is actually making sure that you are, it seems very simple, but making sure that you're telling people what, you're telling me, what do I do with this recipe, right? Tell me to go home and cook it. Mm-hmm. Like it's as simple as that, right? Mm-hmm. If it's a Facebook post, what do you want me to do with this? Follow us over on Instagram. Like, go to a different network, right? And interact with us over there. Or click on our website to, buy merchandise. Like, or sign up for an event that we're doing, like a Meet the Brewer educational event. Yeah. Right? Like that's additional content. So you just have to make sure that you're telling people what to do with it and giving them instructions for how to interact with you, because really, this type of marketing is all about, inspiring and encouraging action, so that you can get that person to the next step in the brand loyalty phase, like the brand awareness phase, right? Like you want to continue to spur action along each step of the path, like across that little river or the stream, to get to the point where, eventually your ultimate goal is to get them to a point of brand advocacy, which is where, I'm in a talk with my neighbors, right, outside, and we're having a beer on the weekend. And I'm like, oh, I just picked this up. Look at this. Eventually that's what you want. You want people to stand around in random places and talk about your beers with other people. Yeah. Like, who doesn't want that to happen? That's, that's one of the greatest forms of marketing ever, is just word of mouth referrals, right? Absolutely. So that's kind of what you're working up to, is it where you're so familiar and so invested in a brand that you're willing to talk to other people without that company even knowing, and just spread the good word for them. Kind of like giving somebody a restaurant recommendation, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
When somebody says, like, I want great pizza, where do I go? Oh, let me tell you about this place, Yeah.
And so from a practical standpoint so you and I have our own breweries and we're part of the marketing team. We're like, okay, this is great. I totally get the content marketing. I get why it's valuable. How do I do it? One of the ways that I thought was just pretty ingenious. There was a very, very large brewery. I'm going to keep the names out on this one, but they had this particular mega brewery is great at marketing. So let's call it what it is. They had one of their craft breweries had a dish that was super popular, and so they put out kind of like a little rip-off sheet in the grocery stores of all the ingredients you need at this grocery store to make this dish. And don't forget to buy this beer with these ingredients. And then on the back of it was how to make this dish at home once you have the ingredients and the beer at home. And it was one of those things where, of course, the grocery stores are going to love it. Yeah, the grocery stores are going to love it because now they're upselling with just this little tear-off piece of paper. People are like, oh my gosh, I love that dish. I want to make that at home. Here's how. Oh, I got to get the beer too. So they're increasing sales of that beer. They're increasing sales for that account. And the customer's going home going, I can't wait to have this dish. And it was like, and it wasn't an expensive thing. You're basically come up with the idea, design, and print these little tear-off sheets and get them out to all the things and, it was all the stores. It was a beautiful piece of content marketing.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love stuff like that where it can come into play on multiple levels. And there's a whole bunch of businesses that benefited from the process that you just talked about, that's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. It goes beyond the trifecta. I mean, there's other entities involved. Yeah. But what are other ways that smaller breweries with, maybe there's a marketing person or a marketing-minded individual who happens to work at the brewery, let alone those breweries with devoted marketing teams, how can we utilize content marketing in a better way? You've already kind of described some, but I want to focus on this question specifically.
Okay. I think the easiest go-to for me to suggest for people is education, like some form of education, right? Because there's still a lot of people out there, that don't know a ton about beer. And even if they do, they don't know everything about your brewery, and they certainly don't know everything about like behind the scenes, right? So I have to remind folks that I work with that are smaller, smaller size breweries in general, look inward and don't take anything small for granted. Because some of the things that we consider ho-hum, daily things could be really exciting and educating, educational for the general public. So like, how does your canning line work? I know that sounds silly, but like, are you packaging beer? Like how does that work? Like, can you give us a little like short video of like things actually being packaged? Or could you talk about the different styles of beer in your entire portfolio and then maybe do like a blog post, right? Just write about it and take some pictures, right? And give me, some notes about how to taste beer properly or what to look for in off flavors. Right? Like we're always worried about sensory stuff, right? Everybody's always concerned with that. That's not super common knowledge to regular consumers out there. So things that you can do like that, I always encourage, blogs are not dead. For anybody who wants to fight me on that, I encourage you.
I didn't think that was ever a question.
I hear that a lot from people. Email is dead. Blogging is dead. All that, all these things. No, absolutely not. It's not. And there's a reason why blogging and emailing still works is because when you write it from a place of authenticity and you can provide brand value to your audience, people are going to be excited about reading your blog or reading your email. So, start writing. Start as simple as that, right? It doesn't cost you a thing. You probably already have a website. You probably already have, a way to send emails to people. Hopefully, if not, you should be using the free version of MailChimp. Just go out and sign up for it. It's super easy.
Yep.
Just take a little bit of time and think about all the small things that happen in your brewery kind of on a daily basis that not everybody would know about. Tasting beer, serving beer. How did you come up with the label, right? Like who's the artist on the label? What kind of music do you play in the tap room? All these things.
And why? Why do you play
yeah.
Motown hits on Thursdays? Why is that a thing? You know, it's like
there's always a story.
Yeah.
There's always a story to tell. And, you know, you and I have talked about Building a Story Brand, that book by Donald Miller before. And it's like, excuse me, it's like mind blowing, right? When you can really relate it to the craft beer world. It's super fascinating. And I think it just opens up so many doors because everyone has a story. Every craft brewery has a story. I don't care who you are, going from, nano-sized brew pub all the way up to the big production facilities with multiple locations across the U.S. Everyone has stories to tell, and consumers are interested in that. So just start telling stories, start educating, start inspiring people. Make your brand relatable and personal, talk about how you're involved with your community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your staff, things that are important to you. And this is literally stuff that you can just sit down and open up a spiral notebook, jot down some ideas, and just start either writing about it or taking photos, whatever you're good at, right? And then getting that content out consistently to your target audience and using a voice in your copywriting that resonates with them and makes sense to them. And I would almost guarantee you, the value of my business, that it will work. Well, which is a big statement. So
and I've experienced this for decades. I remember doing sales training, working at a gear store years and years ago, and the very, they said, when someone comes into your store, your brewery, wherever it is, the first thing out of your mouth should have nothing to do with sales. And that goes along with Gary Vee's jab, 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 right hook. It goes along with the idea of like, you're not going to go into bars, say, can I buy you a drink before we get married? No, just, hey, I want to give you something that I think will enhance your life. Can I buy you a drink? Maybe have a little conversation. It's that same type of mentality of just going and provide value. And at some point be like, hey, can I ask a favor? It's, and it doesn't have to be mousy like that. It can be a little bit more direct, but remember, you're trying to add something. You're trying to give something, right?
Yes, exactly. And, while we were sitting here talking about, I thought, well, I should probably give Jeremy some more examples of this, and I'll try to do it really quickly because, but I want to give people something familiar. This is how I teach sales. I like giving a frame of reference for everything.
You're going to tell a story in this, aren't you?
Yeah. The more you can make something familiar, right? Like everybody has, like storytelling has been around since the prehistoric times. It is a big reason why we're human, right? Like if you think about it at the very basics, right? So
our brains are wired for story.
Yes, they are completely. And I was thinking in particular of my friends at Lady Justice Brewing here in Denver. And they are a very small operation in Denver proper. And the three ladies that own it and run it, and they're the head brewers for everything. But they have a wonderful story. Their business model actually gives back to various charities. Like they pick a different one every month, and a portion of your purchases go back to that local charity, right? So every month they have a new story to tell, and it has nothing to do with their beer, like zero. It's all about the community organization that they're giving to, right?
Yeah.
And this goes out in their email newsletter. It goes out on social media. They also put press releases out into local media, things like this. But what it does as a consumer, it piques my interest, right? Like they're speaking to me like, oh, look at this great story. Not only do I love their beer, but they're telling me about the community organization that they're giving back to. And oh, by the way, they're also having an event that is kind of like a fundraiser. That's even more content, right? And this is what they have going on at the event. But there's literally no mention of specific products, right? They're not like hawking sales at me right away, but they're giving me content that I want to consume so that I'm further invested with their brand. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, frankly, basically what I heard is help us save lives. All you have to do is drink a beer. And when I hear a story like that, I'm thinking, I don't need more information. I'm in. Where do I sign up? It can be the power of story, the power of purpose, the power of all the stuff that you and I have talked about many times previously. This is where modern marketing is. This is where purpose-driven marketing is. This is where content marketing is. Please forgive the shameful plug, but anyone listening to this knows I've partnered with Brewery DB because they're trying to kind of do the same thing. They're trying to get information out to consumers and help breweries do better. And they're going after this win-win-win scenario. And the way that they're trying to help get that information out is I am creating some content on food pairing and beer styles and other stuff to help people learn more about this stuff and appreciate it more and enjoy it more, and it's a win all the way around. And again, please forgive me. I'm not trying to plug myself more than I ought to, but
it's your podcast.
But it's my podcast, so I'm plugging. But and that's why I partnered with this entity because their values and purpose were in total alignment with mine. Is with the podcast is the more you know, the better it gets. And and that to me, and that was one of the reasons why I kept thinking about this stuff is like this stuff is just so much better. Even statistically, I mean, you can look at the statistics on this stuff, and it is like ridiculously better than just like, hey, have you gotten your little gizmo gadget today? But wait, there's more. It is so much better than that. Yes.
And because I adore you and the podcast and I love your audience, and I want to give you a little freebie as like a way to get people started, because I know we've been talking about all these like conceptual ideas of content marketing, but I also want people to walk away from this episode with some actionable ways that they can get started with content marketing. I hope that's okay.
Oh, that's fine by me. You have to ask them.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
I want people to think about it this way, and you can do this like on a Excel spreadsheet or Google sheet, or just sit down with a piece of paper and draw up like a little grid, like a tic-tac-toe style grid, and I want you to kind of have columns that go across the page with some basic themes that you can use that appeal to almost anybody, honestly, almost any target customer. Now, what you'll have to do is style it in a way that fits with your brand. But there's some basic like overarching themes in marketing that tend to appeal to almost anybody. And one is education. One is information, or, something that's informative, right? Another one is inspiration. Like, how can you inspire people? Another one is a peek behind the scenes, right? Another one is social proof, which is, like reviews or testimonials, or, I know people hate Untapped in the beer world, but like a really great review on Untapped or, Yelp or something like that. And another one is objections, or can you debunk a myth? And those are like some common overarching themes in marketing that people kind of stick to all the time. If you look at like the topics of their posts or emails or, things on their website. And then along the left-hand side, I want you to think of all the things that you do as a business or that relate to like your core values, right? So let's say Jeremy and I have a brewery. Beer is going to be one of those things, right? Because we make beer. That's what we do. We have a brewery, right?
Yes.
In like the Lady Justice example, there's this community, right? So like charitable giving. That would be another one of their like core values and kind of an overarching theme of the entire organization. If you focus on education, beer education could be part of that. Another one could be, industry news, right? Like you're a brewery, you're in the beer industry. What could you talk about with just the beer industry in general? If people are drinking beer, they're interested in the beer industry, right? Like that's kind of, it's a little broad, but, thinking about just putting different topics or core values about your brewery or business on that left-hand column, and then look at it like you want to fill in the intersections of the rows and the columns. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that's not too weird. But in thinking about coming up with content ideas, you give yourself like a matrix, right? And then at the intersection of, say, beer and education, maybe you put something about, a blog post about beer tasting. Maybe food is on your core value list. With you, Jeremy, like talking about beer and food pairings, right? That would fall under education. Something that might fall under beer and food for inspiration is like a really fantastic, recipe that you found for like a beer dinner, or can you guide someone through a beer dinner in a video, like something like that. Oh, yeah. So when you can kind of go to those intersections of these, values that describe your particular business at the intersection of, these overarching themes that really resonate with consumers, you will never run out of content. I almost guarantee you.
And that's fantastic. And while you were saying that, I kept thinking about, we were talking about, videos of your canning line, and I can think that people might be like, I've seen it before. I don't need to see that. But for anyone listening, I would add on top of that, if I may, think about who you're trying to talk to. If you have people who are engineering minded, they would love to see that canning line. If you think of people who are history and literature minded, maybe you talk about the history of this beer style and how it came along and how you're carrying the torch today with this beer that you just released. If you're someone who just loves to cook, maybe you have the beer pairing thing like we talked about. But keep in mind that everyone has different things that they care about, different things that they love. So that should open up even more possible stories to tell and even more content to put out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just make sure that you're very clear about, like, to touch on what you were speaking about earlier, what differentiates you, right? What do you do better than anybody else? Like, what really makes your brand stand out in a crowd? And then run with that, and thinking about that ideal person that would really value what you do best more than anyone else. Like, and what is that person like? Where do they get their information? What are they inspired by? What other things are they interested in? Just different, like the breweries here right now, baseball season just started. A lot of them are posting about come into the tap room and watch the Rockies game, right? Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they know that their target customers like beer and baseball.
Yeah.
Like that's an indicator to them. And, if they're offering like a special game time meal pairing or something, that's awesome. That's a piece of content, that you can put out there on different channels. And like, here is the value that we're delivering to you because we know you. We're talking to you. We're not talking to ourselves. We're speaking directly to you.
Yeah. And this is fantastic. You and I both know we could go on easily for another hour, but,
oh yeah, definitely.
But I am going to start our wind down process, but you've already answered the normal questions before. So I have a whole new set of questions for you.
Uh-oh.
I hope you're ready.
Like the lightning round. Okay.
Well, and the last questions they usually are hard, but these ones are like twice as hard. So,
okay.
First one is, what do you wish more people understood about beer, or beer marketing, or beer sales?
Biggest thing that I tell people is that you don't dislike beer. You just haven't found one that you like yet. Everyone likes beer. That's probably the biggest misconception is that I wish that they knew more about flavor profiles, because I feel like there's a beer out there for everybody. You just have to figure out what it is. So just about beer in general, I guess that's how I feel about that. About beer marketing, I wish that more people understood that it is not like shooting fish in a barrel. It is what I like to call calculated influence. And you're not being pushy. You're not being salesy. You have a business. You have to sell things. Otherwise, you don't have a business anymore. So I would love for people to get more comfortable with the fact that telling people about your products or your brand is not pushy. It's not inconvenient. If people don't want to be there, they will get out. Trust me. But that you should feel comfortable with talking all the time about your beers and your brands, because there is a beer for everybody, and you just have to talk to the right people and they will love you for it. Because you are providing value for them. You know, there are needs and wants to be fulfilled.
Yes. Yes. Everyone wins.
Yes.
All right. So the next question is, we can fast forward into the future, and COVID is now officially over. You can leave your home. You can bring your husband and children if you want, or you can go solo, but you can go anywhere in the world for a beer and a meal. Where are you going to go, and what are you going to have?
Oh my gosh. Holy smokes. This is so hard, but I can tell you this, my brain immediately, and this is a Jeremy story. This is a nachos, and I think it was Dos Equis that we talked about last time.
I go Pacifico.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Pacifico. Okay. Immediately my brain jumped to a beer that I used to sell back in the day, early in my career. It is called Cloister Weltenberger.
Oh.
It is in Regensburg, Germany, which is just north of Munich, and it's a monastery. It is the oldest monastery brewery on the planet. And they have a beer garden that would blow your mind. And they have what's called a Schweinhaxen. I'm going very detailed on this. Just forgive me. Yes, exactly. It's delicious pork. It is delicious roasted pork in the middle of Germany that will knock your socks off. And then it's paired with a beautiful, authentic German Dunkel that is it's magical. So it's right on the Danube River. It's beautiful. Yeah. So I would probably go there most likely.
That's a great story about that. So this time I am not going to ask you the question, why does good beer matter? Because you've already answered that. My question for you is, I know you are a mom, but you're also in the beer world. Mm-hmm. What do you teach your children about beer?
Respect. First and foremost, without a doubt. That's the first thing that popped into my mind. This probably comes from years of being in the import world. I got very accustomed to the European perspective of beer, which is that it's all about enjoyment and gathering and, being social and connecting with people and family. It's not about beer bongs and shotguns and, it's something to be abused. So even though my boys are still very young, we do allow them to taste beer and appreciate beer with myself and my husband. And just to have a respect for somebody's craft that they've put hard work into and nuances of flavors, and that it's something to be savored and enjoyed and respected and not abused.
I love that. I love that. I'll let that go. I'm going to let that kind of afterglow continue on. I have some thoughts with my own kids and everything, but you know what? You said it perfectly. I cannot add anything better to that. So, so you have a business, and you did mention before we started recording that that you have gotten busy once again, which is fantastic. But there may still be some people out there that want to buy your courses, join a mastermind that you talked about. How can anyone listening connect with you, talk with you, or learn what knowledge you have to share?
Oh, this is exciting. There's an easy way to do this too. First, just head over to my website. It's pretty easy. It's notyourhobbymarketing.com. There's no one else that has something close. So even if you Google it, you should be able to find me. I'm a one-woman show here. So you can find all of my products and services on my website. There's a little chat box there that goes directly to me. It's not like an answering service. So you can actually chat with me on my website, which is fun. If you have any questions about more about what I do or need some further explanation. But yes, I would love for people to kind of come into my universe. If you need a little bit of business educational help, I've got plenty of online courses that, you can do it on your own. You don't have to talk to me. And like you said, I have a super fun mastermind group that's very low priced. It's very low commitment. I try to make it easy for everybody. It is off of social media, which is nice. You don't have to join like a Facebook group or anything. And we sort of learn together through shared experiences. So I do some live coaching. We do some interviews. We do some Q&A sessions. People kind of feed off of each other. I put lots of resources in the group. And if people do want to talk to me about coaching, I'm up for it anytime. So just book a call with me online from my website, or you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Not Your Hobby Marketing. I am on the Twitter, but I'm not a big tweeter. but if you do want to find me, I am on Twitter at Not Your Hobby MS. Whoever took my Twitter handle of Not Your Hobby Marketing, I'm going to come after you. But it's you can find me on social media. I'm on there a lot. But please reach out on the website. Everything comes straight to me, and I would love to hear from people, even if you just have feedback and not questions about my services or anything.
Great.
But reach out anytime.
And do you have a call to action or final words for any listeners?
Don't be afraid of marketing and sales. It's not as hard as you think it is. And you just have to think about it in terms of how do you buy things? How do you interact with products? And think about your own experiences and then reflect those in your own branded business practices. It's not rocket science. It's just sales.
Wonderful. Julie, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. As always, I love talking to you. I can't wait to see you in person and have a beer like we've been talking about for over a year now. I know. But it's, hey, it is what it is. But thank you again for sharing your knowledge and your enthusiasm and your experience and your stories with everyone. I really hope this helps everyone out there, everyone included. So thank you.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me.
Opening a brewery or tap room and showing up is a great first step to a successful beer business. But well-branded content marketing can take you where you want it to go. It's efficient, effective, and can greatly improve your business if it's done well. Thank you to Julie for once again helping us raise the bar in beer. In the next episode, we begin a short series on all things sensory by discussing the impact it has on our lives and what we do without it. Good Beer Matters is a show about great beer, great friends, and the experiences we create together. But it's also about better beer education so you can level up your game. So if you're a beer and food professional or even a beer enthusiast, then please subscribe to Good Beer Matters podcast and go to goodbeermatters.net for more resources and next steps. After that, grab a beer, hang out with friends, and let the world open up. Thank you for listening. Cheers.